You won't believe what happened next. It started with a fishing boat and ended with me owning the neighborhood and rewriting the rules that held us all captive. It's a story of grief, defiance, and delivering poetic justice on perfectly manicured lawns. You could say I was living the dream half a year ago. I'd built a tech startup from scratch, pouring in countless nights fueled by ramen and caffeine, dreaming about someday making it big. And one day, against all odds, some tech giant saw something in what I'd built, and they paid me handsomely for it. I finally had the exit I'd been chasing, but when the checks cleared, I realized something. My wife, Catherine, my partner of so many years, wasn't there to celebrate. Cancer had taken her 18 months before, and now I had a 12-year-old daughter, Crystal, and a mansion of sorrow to navigate. The sale should have felt like victory, but it felt empty without Catherine there to share it. Crystal slipped into herself, grades falling, smiles disappearing. We existed in the same space, but grief had built walls around us, one for each of us. I knew this wasn't what she would have wanted. Not the distance, not the grief, and certainly not the life we found ourselves living. Then one night, clutching that fat check, I realized maybe it wasn't the income we lost. It was the chance at a fresh start. Catherine had always loved that idea. A house by the lake, teaching Crystal to fish, fresh spring mornings with gentle ripples. So I sold our condo, packed the pain into moving boxes, and started looking for a suburban haven. That's how we ended up in Oakwood Estates, a glossy neighborhood of immaculate lawns, flowering trees, and houses that looked like airbrushed dreams. We moved in early spring, and everything looked perfect. I was raised working class, but I'd made it. This felt like the life Catherine and I had dreamed of. But it didn't take long for the cracks to show. Crystal was shy at her new school, but I promised she'd bloom. We both needed to. Then I surprised her with something that sparkled brighter than any new house. A modest, shiny 18-foot fishing boat I'd spent weeks researching. I wanted something safe, something simple, something that carried Catherine's memory on its name. Pierce's Peace. When it was delivered, Crystal's spark reignited. She couldn't stop grinning. She wanted to go fishing right away. For a moment, I felt like I'd handed her back a piece of mom. We parked it in the driveway temporarily, just until it was registered and moved to the dock. That evening, we sat on it, planning our first trip, tying knots, tracing the lake's edges on maps, breathing hope into each silent knot of grief. That's when Susan Vaughn came barreling in, dripping designer labels, perfect hair, and a smile that landed somewhere between a welcome and a threat. She introduced herself as HOA president. "Lovely boat," she said in that sickly sweet tone. "But driveway storage, well, you know the rules." She handed me a fat stack of HOA covenants thicker than I'd been given at the purchase. Section 8.3, driveway storage of recreational vehicles, strictly forbidden. "You'll need to remove it within 48 hours, or fines will start," she purred, glancing at Crystal, who was perched on the boat, silently hopeful. She drove off, leaving me with a sinking feeling and a daughter whose sparkle had just cracked. At night, I read every line, every rule, from mailboxes to lawn heights to invisible boat restrictions. The list of fines mounted faster than I did. Next morning, a violation notice slapped on the boat. Lawn too high. Trash can out of place. I crumpled them all. Crystal grew tense, measuring grass blades as if they held her future. For her, grief returned. Silent, creeping, sad. Then came the emergency HOA meeting. Essentially a public shaming session with PowerPoint slides of my property. You could see boat, lawn, even our daughter's basketball hoop, and me highlighted as a threat to property values. I felt eyes turn away. The whisper of being one of those washed over me. Afterward, I tried to reason. "Maybe we can work something out," I said. She cut me off coldly. "Rules are rules. Maybe Oakwood isn't the right fit for you." And, as if on cue, Harold Winters whispered that she'd driven out 3 families before. Power and perfectionism backed by connections. I refused to be bullied. Quietly, I complied. I parked the boat off-site, trimmed grass, took down the hoop. But the hits kept coming. Flowers, mailbox, bird feeder. Neighbors were tired, too scared to speak. The Wilsons temporarily won a religious exemption, but only after paying big attorney bills. Garcia's party was penalized. It was an ugly pattern. I had to fight, but how? I started digging. I befriended Linda Marshall, the HOA secretary. She slipped me records in hushed tones, altered minutes, proxy vote forgeries, secret meetings. And all the while, Susan quietly steered maintenance contracts to friends, landscaping to her brother-in-law at inflated rates, security to her tennis buddy's husband, even newly formed companies suddenly landing HOA business. This wasn't community. It was empire building. I also found that a forgotten rule from state law, never properly rescinded, allowed driveway parking with 75% neighbor approval. I circulated the petition. A few brave souls signed. Nancy Greenfield, the widow, stood tall and signed, and got fined the next day for her rose trellis. Fear reigned even over kindness. I was wrestling despair when Harold dropped a bombshell. Susan was selling her house quietly and quickly. She'd created fear, driven families out, and planned to cash in while the property still looked pristine. I realized the system she curated would reward her, but maybe this was my chance for payback. Working behind the scenes, I created Oakwood Legacy LLC, my hidden hand in the deal. I positioned a wealthy private buyer through Aaron, my broker friend. We offered full price, quick close, confidentiality. Susan, desperate financially, bit. She signed without looking, and sealed her own fate. Next morning, just before her party to celebrate pushing us out, I called the boat transporter and said deliver it, but to her house. The driver laughed but was in. We dropped the boat on her driveway, added signs about public property and surveillance. I sat beside it with coffee as neighbors trickled in. I'd arranged for Jennifer Lawson, a notary and friend, to be there as witness. She came out, her face going through levels of confusion, horror, rage. Someone flagged 2 officers. When the police arrived, I handed them the LLC paperwork and conveyance documents. I had legal access rights. Her party was on my lawn now. The cop read, paused, looked at her. "You're having a party on private property now owned by him." She shrank. Jennifer stepped in with notarized documents. I dropped the bomb. I had evidence of selective enforcement, forged minutes, financial shenanigans. Linda appeared with records. Neighbors gasped, whispers erupted. The spell broke. This whole empire of fear collapsed on her. She panicked, vowed rescinding sale, threatened legal action. I waited. Meanwhile, community members came forward with their stories: blocked parties, unfair exemptions, holiday harassment. The tide had turned. She tried emergency orders, duress claims, anything. But Laia Torres, my HOA abuse lawyer, dismantled everything. The contract was solid. The sale stood. Meanwhile, I kept the boat parked where everybody could see it, a daily reminder of upheaval. Then, at a public HOA meeting, Thomas Vaughn, her son, stood up. He had emails, texts from his mom showing forged proxies and derogatory statements. He broke. The room erupted. Board members pressed for her resignation. Homeowners demanded investigations. She crumbled. I offered her choices: buy the house back at premium and agree to never return, or rent it from me under absurdly restrictive conditions. Extortion? I call that poetic justice. She bought it, fiery and beaten, but deal sealed. Then I didn't stop. With Dr. Eleanor Hughes, a property law professor, I rewrote Oakwood's bylaws: transparent finances, recall mechanism with 30% trigger, audits, recorded meetings, No more tyranny. A genuine community sparked. Crystal smiled. Basketball hoop returned. Neighbors who had stayed silent showed up for the first time. Claire Wren won HOA presidency on transparency and inclusion. The Rodriguez family, previously blocked by Susan, moved in. Kids played, gardens bloomed. When Susan finally left, no one helped pack her boxes. Crystal and I watched, hand in hand. "Finally," she whispered, "can we take the boat out?" And that's what we did. Just the two of us, slipping from the shore into golden water. I showed her how to reel in a base. She whispered, "Mom would be really proud." And I believed her. We didn't just move our boat. We turned the system upside down and helped rebuild a real community. And a year later, at the anniversary boat incident, I unveiled a public dock, open to all, no waiting lists. That same day, I revealed something else. I'd bought Susan's new house. I wasn't messing with her, just turning it into a retreat for orphaned kids and families who'd never get lakeside weekends. We ended on the lake at sunset, that quiet, golden place where healing began. Grief had brought us to the brink, but we turned it into something lasting. If someone tells you your boat doesn't fit, sometimes the best move isn't taking it away, it's buying the whole dock.